Hmm. So how did you manage to actually like create Cid?
Well, again, we're going back a few years, but to the best of my recollection, your typical audition consists of they give you a visualization of the character they're casting, and they give you a few lines called a breakdown of what the character is like personality-wise. And here's a little bit of his backstory, and this is just a gruff, no-nonsense kind of a guy, and he's kind of a badass too. And everybody wants to play a guy like that, and everybody can pretty easily think of a voice or a characterization for a guy like that. And really all I did was kind of go with my gut as to how I think he should sound based on how he looks, and I can't remember if they wanted him to sound a little bit Southern or not. That might have just been me, might have been them. Regardless, they were happy with that too. So it's just a matter of looking at what they're offering you and interpreting it. And they go with your interpretation over everybody else that auditioned for it.
Yeah, the Southern just really fit his character.
I think so. I think he's got a lot of swagger to him, and you're right. It's a good fit.
How do auditions actually usually go for you? Do they actually give you like a couple chances to do a line, or is it just like, hey, do it once, you're done?
Well, usually 99% of my auditions, and this is true for just about every voice actor, 99% of your auditions are going to be done at your agency or at home. Like I send in auditions from home more often these days because my wife and I are expecting our first child. So
cool.
I'm not out of the house as much. So you have time with it. You can tinker with your performance a bit, and it is certainly very low pressure when compared to on-camera auditions, in which case you're right there, they're probably taping you, and you're in front of a bunch of strangers, and you've got to kind of nail it. If they like you, they'll have you read it 2 or 3 different ways, and they'll work with you. In this case, this was one of those, I believe it was one of the in-agency auditions where we recorded in their booths. So you're very comfortable with the surroundings. You know the engineer because you're reading 4 or 5 other things for him after you're done with this one. So you get 2 or 3 cracks at it, and you get a chance to prepare the night before if you want. So it's a very comfortable process, and your ego is never really at stake because you don't walk out of a room thinking, boy, they just tore me a new one there. You get to read it, they record it, they send it off, and you forget about it.
Yeah, for beginning voice actors, they have something kind of like that. It's called Voice Acting Alliance. Any advice for up-and-coming voice actors?
It's cliched, but it is true. You got to work at it. I had probably 10 years of experience performing before I even got an agent for voiceover in Los Angeles. I got an agent for voiceover in Orlando, but there are really only 1 or 2 agents there, and it's a shallower talent pool. But it's important to work at your craft, and the craft being that of acting. People think voiceover is just talking or just giving yourself a cool sounding voice, but it isn't really that simple. They need you to give a 3-dimensional performance, and if you can't act, your prospects are going to be limited. So work on the craft of acting, and voiceover is just an extension of that. You don't get the benefit of using your body to sell the performance, and so it's a more theatrical style of acting usually. This is in the case of animation and video games, but I would say work at your craft and make as many friends as you possibly can, because people really do help other people out. It's certainly been the case for me, and I've paid it forward as much as I can. And I think the people who really want to do it will find a way to do it. It won't fall in your lap. I mean, when I started 10 years ago, they were just starting to change to email as a way of delivering the auditions. They were just ending the practice of sending your recorded CD audition around town to the different casting offices. I know it sounds so antiquated now, but 11 years ago, the internet wasn't as I guess it wasn't as, what's the word I'm searching for? It wasn't as
user-friendly?
User-friendly and omnipresent. That's the other word as far as casting went. And So, you know, people talked, but not in real time. They would, you know, they talk to each other on the phone the next day. They discuss this or this. But now people are doing live streaming podcasts of what they're doing. They're Facebooking things. I mean, it is so much easier to connect with somebody across the country or across the world. And if that's the case, then why not? You know, it's easier to build a network of support. So you guys are going to get a bigger audience for your abridged series than you realize Shakespearean actors and in Shakespeare's time ever got in their entire career. So use the technology to your advantage because everyone else is.
One last thing for Cid. Is there anything you wish you could have like added to your character or done differently?
Not really to my recollection. I mean, you always have a bunch of ideas you'd like to try, but you also have to learn to work within the boundaries they give you. Sometimes you can get more creative by working within strict limits than you can when somebody turns you loose and lets you do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that'd be another bit of advice, professionally speaking. A lot of times, the more creative you are, the more you like to try and ad-lib and change the lines they give you. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to try that, but it's best to wait until they give you the okay once you've already got the job. If you're auditioning, I almost want to think anything is worth trying because sometimes you can surprise them with something they didn't think of. But the writing, you know, you don't have to treat it like it's completely sacrosanct and it can't ever be changed. But I try to respect the writing that they give me because they put effort into it. You can tell when they're not trying. But in this case, this is a pretty sacred series, and I didn't want to change too much. So I'm actually pretty good with working within the boundaries people give me. I'll usually come up with something that I'd like to try. But, I mean, half of my really creative stuff comes when I'm driving home. And I'm a half hour too late.
Gotta love traffic.
Yeah, you do have a lot of time to think once you're done. You're thinking, maybe I should have tried this. Well, it's okay. You know, I don't think Cid, as I would have liked to have done him, is much different than the Cid that I actually did do.
Is there any upcoming roles that we might see you in?
Let's see. Well, most of the stuff I'm not allowed to talk about. Everybody likes to have non-disclosure agreements these days, but yes, there is something next year that will be big, and you will know about it, and you will know that I am in it if you just look at the credits, but I can't tell you what it is, unfortunately. I'm sorry to tease you, but I recorded a voice for Clint Eastwood's movie, J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, cool.
And it's starring Leo DiCaprio. That's just, you know, again, it was a voiceover job. So what I did was I played the voice of a couple of characters that you only hear on the phone. You know, and he's only got a couple of lines, but he relays a very important piece of information to a very important character in the movie. And I can't tell you anything beyond that. And I did do, this is an older cartoon, but I don't know if you're familiar with Top Cat. That was a cartoon from the 60s.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it probably sounds vaguely familiar. I was a little more familiar with it. Well, a good friend of mine who's also a voice actor is directing and acting in a Top Cat feature, which will probably see the DVD market here and in Latin American countries, where apparently it's very popular. And so we updated it, and he brought it into the new millennium, and I got to do the voice of one of the characters in that. I don't know when they'll release that, but mainly just, you know, a lot of little bits of animation and commercials here and there. The Naruto video game, that'll be coming out, and I guess in future episodes of Naruto, my Hidan character arc is playing out now.
Oh, cool.
So keep your eyes open for that.
All right, so I think that'll take care of the interview.
My pleasure.
All right.